This weekend's project is installing a handle on the inside of the lift gate, and then now you can open it from the inside if you have to. Just to demonstrate here, we got our screwdriver and we're going to pop that in there, so that's locked. And then with the handle, open up that gate. We'll remove the inside door handle here and show you how it's all put together. First thing we're going to do is remove these Robertson screws. This is going to be a machine screw. That's a number 10 by 24 threads per inch, I do believe. With those 4 screws removed, this will come out now, and it's going to go, there's a hole inside our panel, and then there's also a support plate behind that. This has to come out of both of those. It's also fastened down here. What I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to kind of twist it and push it that way, and that's going to disengage it from the linkage, and then we can remove the whole thing. With the handle removed, you'll see that I have a piece of pipe welded on the end here. The linkage that I've built goes inside here, just sticks straight out, and so that's what I'm doing. I'm taking this, I'm twisting it, and I'm pushing it that way to disengage that linkage. We have the panel removed and resting up there. Underneath that panel, you can see our support plate. What we have is 4 captive nuts on the back side of this. Again, that's a number 10 machine screw with 24 threads per inch. We've matched up our big hole and then our 4 holes for those screws right there. And that's going to correspond with this plate right here. The support plate here is fastened by 3 bolts. That's going to be a 5/16, so that'll be a 1/2 inch socket to remove those. Here's the support plate removed and flipped over. You can see our captive nuts that we've got welded on there. And then right here, what we've done is we've tack welded some captive nuts in here. That's 1, 2, and 3. This is a nut and a washer, and if you don't have the right size washer where the nut will fit inside there, you just simply drill that out with the step drill. I'll just use that step drill till I find the right size. Then I'm going to drill that out till the nut fits inside. And then I'm going to have this on a flat surface where it's true, and I'm just going to weld around that nut. That's going to be my captive nut. Once that's welded around, then I simply flip it upside down, and then I'm going to weld the edges of the washer onto the body metal of the liftgate. Here's the factory liftgate handle. In a previous video, I showed you how I rebuilt this and beefed it up with modified linkage in there. And then I had to modify this one for our handle for the interior. Here's everything on the bench, and we'll start off with the original factory liftgate handle right here. Originally, when I was fixing this, what I did was I took that rivet out of there and I replaced that with a 1/4 inch bolt, and I'm using a lock nut. This is going to be a Teflon locker nut. With that lock nut, you can set your tension on there, and you can still have this a movable piece. So you can adjust that to whatever tension you want, so it still slides and moves like it's supposed to. I did the same thing here. I took that plastic piece, I removed it, and I got a piece of pipe here, and I just cut that down, and then I drilled and tapped a 1/4 inch hole in there. And then once I got that 1/4 inch hole in there, I took a piece of 1/4 inch threaded rod, and then I would thread that in there, and then I tack weld that all the way around, and then that goes in there. Again, on this side, we have another nylon locker nut right there, and again, you can set your tension. You want this to be able to articulate and move. That's why you're using those Teflon lock nuts there to set that. We're also using those Teflon lockers right here, and that's going to set our tension on our rod, which goes down to our actuator right there. This was what I used to fix the factory one, but then when we want to put our inside door handle in there, we need a way for it to open the door, and we have to attach it somehow to this linkage so that it'll be able to open the door the same as this would. I found one of these. I think they're used for toolboxes and stuff like that. What I did in this case is I just took another piece of pipe and then I welded it on the edge here. I had to modify this piece here because this is going to be our pivot point, I guess, if you want to call it that, to be able to open the gate. So I removed this. I then took another piece of pipe, and then I drilled that hole all the way through to the other side, and then it's threaded on both sides. So you see there's a threaded hole there and a threaded hole there. Then I took that ready rod and I put it on both sides here. So this is going to be replicating the factory one that we fixed, and then we've added this rod here, and then this rod here is going to connect to our inside door handle. And then when I took that rod, all I did was I made this long enough, and then I marked it, and then I bent it in a 90. So if we set it up like this, you can see that this is where the rod would go down, and it would go to the actuator right here. You can see that this pivots. You can see that this pivots. The rod comes up and it's bent into a 90. The reason we have that bent at a 90 degrees is because you're going to take this handle here and then you're going to stick it through there, and that's the engagement part. Once we have this rod, the right angle and the right length and so on and so forth, the reason that it's open-ended is because it has to move in and out of that pipe, because this piece right here moves in and out. So it's got to move side to side, and as it moves side to side here, it also has to move side to side there. The next thing was we need a plate to support everything here, so we just built a simple plate here. We cut our window out so we can fit our door handle, and then we've got our 3 bolts. This is a factory hole, this is a factory hole, and then I measured and drilled this one. There's this hole here, there's another hole exactly like that that's going to be right there. So I just use a step drill and I drill that bigger until my captive nut will fit inside there, and then I can tack it to the body metal. It's going to be the same thing here. There's going to be a hole right there, and you can put that in there and then weld it to the body metal there. Now in this case over here, you have to get your fingers in behind there because you can see some spot welds in here. So there's metal in behind here, and you have to find where the spot is that you can actually drill that, because there's some support metal in behind here. And this was the location that I was able to find and use. So I just simply drill that out again with a step drill, and then I put in my captive nut right there. Those are our 3 locations to hold that support plate down. Once the support plate is bolted in place, we just simply get our panel and we put that on there. Whatever you choose to do, you start off small and then you work your way out to where it wants to be. And then that way you can have this in the right location. And then with the finished installation, it'll look a little more clean. Once everything is bolted in place there and lined up and stuff, you're going to stick that through the window, and you're going to line it up, and you're going to articulate this until it gets onto our linkage here. And then once it's onto our linkage and then lined up with our holes, then we're going to just simply screw it into place, and it's done.